Today, a Redditor shares a story of when they sent a very ill-timed gift to the work group chat. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, today I messed up by trying to be cute and almost blinding my boyfriend. So, my boyfriend and I have this thing where we do random surprise kisses, just sneak up and steal a kiss when the other isn't expecting it. It's cute, it's our thing. Well, last night, I decided to be extra sneaky. He was sitting on the couch, totally focused on his phone, and I thought, perfect time to surprise him with an upside-down Spider-Man kiss. I climbed onto the back of the couch, leaned way down over his head, and just as I was about to plant the cutest, most romantic kiss ever, he sneezed violently, right as my face was inches from his. His forehead rocketed up and smack headbutted me directly in the nose. I saw stars. I yelped, lost my balance, and went full ragdoll mode off the back of the couch. Meanwhile, he's panicking, thinking he just knocked me out cold mid-sneeze. I'm on the floor, holding my nose, laughing and crying at the same time. He's apologizing and also dying of laughter once he realizes I'm not dead. Now, my nose is slightly bruised, and he won't stop calling me Kissassin because apparently I almost took myself out with my own sneak attack. Let the lesson be learned: if you put yourself within arm's reach of the person you're using the element of surprise on, you very well might fall into the crosshairs. I mean, how many times have you seen like those prank videos where somebody has something like lurking around the corner, the person turns the corner, sees them, freaks out, and immediately just wails a punch on them? If you're gonna sneak close quarters up on somebody, at least know beforehand how they're likely going to react. Representative Turn 27 commented, "Years ago, I was with my wife at the club. We were dancing our butts off. When my wife was overheating, she bent forward to let her hair fall in front of her to cool off the back of her neck. I went behind her to blow on the back of her neck to help her cool down. At that moment, she flung her head back at speed to throw her hair behind her. Her head hit me in the mouth harder than anyone would think possible. Fortunately, my mouth hit the upper part of her neck, just below her skull, so my teeth didn't get obliterated. I did, however, puncture my lip. She grabbed me and ran me towards the bathroom. I kept my mouth closed in order to not bleed everywhere and on myself. My mouth filled, I couldn't hold any more blood. My mouth was at capacity. As soon as we entered the bathroom, I spit about a pint of it into the sink. There was so much that it looked like a murder scene. After cleaning up my face, we returned to dancing, me with the fattest lip I've ever seen in my life. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy stories of how Redditors severely messed up, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, today I messed up by giving my youngest son advice on happy relationships and causing my oldest son's girlfriend to dump him. First, I would like to say this actually happened on my youngest son's birthday, but today is the day my oldest son confronted me, so here's what happened. After the cake and presents, my youngest son and I were chatting. He's a younger teenager, and now that my wife and I feel he's old enough and mature enough, we gave him permission to begin dating. He wanted advice on his future relationships. His mom and I almost never fight, and apparently it was noticeable enough that he asked about it. The conversation began by talking about learning to respect your partner, etc. I can't remember everything, but I said here are some highlights. Always be ready and willing to say you're sorry, even when you think you're right. Never dismiss your girlfriend's feelings. They are valid even if you don't understand them. Communicate, communicate, communicate. If something is bothering you and you don't tell your significant other, you're only hurting yourself. Listen when she's trying to tell you something, no matter how much you don't want to hear it. Put the game controller down and mute the TV whenever she wants your attention. End every conversation with a sign of your affection. And if you won't see her for a few hours, give her a hug, a kiss, or both every time. Throughout the day, randomly tell her that you're thinking about her, you care about her, or you love her. And mean it. If you stop meaning it, figure out why and fix it or break up. Trust is important, and once you've broken it, you might never fix it again. Many people believe love is the most important thing in a relationship, but it's not. It's respect. If you don't respect your partner or feel she doesn't respect you, talk about it and fix it, or break up. Otherwise, you both will be miserable. There were a bunch of other pieces of advice I gave him, but that's the general gist. It wasn't all seriousness, we joked around a bit too. I told him this little bit of advice my dad told me a long time ago. You will know when your girlfriend is completely comfortable around you when she's willing to fart in front of you. Don't marry her until that happens. Sage advice, that is. Now, me and my youngest were sitting at my desk having this talk while he was picking out the video games he wanted to buy with his birthday money. My daughter and my oldest son's, now ex-girlfriend, were on the couch playing video games and listening to us. My daughter occasionally chimed in with her own comments. She's been dating a few years now and had her own bits of advice to give, though her comments were more about how to act on dates, places they can go, and stuff like that. My oldest son's girlfriend hardly spoke at all. In hindsight, that should have been a red flag. She's a talkative extrovert and also a very pleasant and generous young woman. Eventually, my oldest boy came over and dropped off his gift for his little brother. He and his girlfriend stuck around long enough for him to have some cake, and then they left. At this point, I don't know exactly what happened. My daughter managed to get some details from my oldest son's, now ex-girlfriend. I got some more from my oldest when he came over to yell at me for breaking up his relationship. Long story short, my oldest wasn't being a good boyfriend. His girlfriend confronted him with some issues they've been having. She felt like he didn't respect her opinions and feelings, and she dumped him. It's that simple. I love all my children with every bit of my heart, even when they're mad at me, and I admit I freaked up. I am to blame for his breakup, but not because of what I said in front of his girlfriend. I freaked up because I didn't drill the advice I gave my youngest into my oldest boy's head when he was younger. He wants me to post this on one of the Am I the Jerk subs, but I'm not going to do that. I admit that I could be a better father, and I can be a real jerk sometimes, but I'm pretty dang sure that even though I could have read the dang room, that wasn't the real problem. Hopefully my oldest son learns from this. OP knows that they didn't do anything wrong here, and I think a lot of the advice that they're giving their youngest kid was pretty good advice. I mean, I'm sorry that his relationship didn't work out and all, but like if she hears this example of like how to be a good partner and realizes that she's not happy with their relationship, that's not a reflection on OP being a bad dad. Come on, Dad, can you read the room and stop talking about what a good partner would be like? I don't want to be too harsh about somebody else's kid, but even the fact that they come up to OP and say, "Come on, can't you read the room? You're such a jerk," it doesn't really surprise me that their ex would leave a person who would do that. Fatigue Error commented, "You didn't mess up, your eldest did. Maybe you could have taught him the same stuff? Did he ask though? Your youngest asked, not sure your eldest ever did. And the advice you gave your youngest? It's good points, but they're no secrets. Your eldest clearly has a problem admitting when they're wrong though." OP responded commenting, "The way I look at it, I should have given that advice unsolicited back when he was still living under my roof. Hopefully he learns from this. He is a smart kid, even though he's a bit spoiled. I will love him no matter what, and will be waiting in case he wants to talk." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by not asking more questions before using a tanning bed. I got a gym membership recently, and it came with all of the perks like a tanning booth, hydro massage, red light therapy, etc. I've never tanned in a booth or bed in my life, and I'm pretty pale to begin with. Any beach trips, I try hard to cover up because of a really bad sunburn I got as a kid. My family's always pushed for me to tan pretty regularly, as they comment things like, 'You look like a vampire. You seriously lack vitamin D. You could blind someone with those legs. Got a moonburn?' And just stupid things like that. So I did it. I went to the gym, did my normal workout, and decided to get a tan. When I asked the front desk rep how long I should go for, she looked me up and down and said, 'I'm not sure. I've seen people do 9 minutes. I then asked if I needed any suntan lotion, because again, I don't know how it works. She says, 'No, you just pop in and press start. I have you for 9 minutes. I didn't question it. I went in as naked as the day I was born, and it's one of the worst things I've ever done in my life. I felt great getting out, driving home, but after my shower, it felt like my skin was going to slip off. I turned red and felt hot. Mind you, I haven't had a sunburn in a long time, so I took a nap. When I woke up, I felt like Stewie from Family Guy when Brian forgot about him in the tanning bed. The blisters are unreal, but I've been keeping moisturizing and staying hydrated, but it hurts insanely bad. All this aloe and cold compresses have me never wanting to see a tanning booth or bed or even the sun ever again. So personally, I'm not gonna lie, I have pretty strong opinions about tanning. I don't really understand it. I'm the kind of person who really loves like any skin tone. Super pale skin is like awesome. I've just never understood the like perspective of, oh, it's like a necessity or like it really adds like any kind of value, especially people who go out of their way to do like spray tans. That said, if I was going to get a tan and I walked in here and asked the person for like a recommendation and they say, "I don't really know," I feel like that should have been a sign to be like, okay, maybe next time. Deku Dynamite commented, worked at a tanning salon. I would have the whitest of white human vampires ask me to do 10 minutes in a 20-minute bed half the time. I would tell them, hey, it's your choice, but we suggest starting off at 6 minutes and getting out as early as 3 if you feel your skin tightening while laying there. I speak from experience. I am so pale that I make a sheet of printer paper look tan. I would tell them, I started off at 6 minutes in a 20-minute bed and I still got burned. But some people were like, no, that's ridiculous. Then they would burn. You should tell the owners that this occurred. They need to get their staff smart tan certified or do better training. This wasn't on you. I'm sorry this happened. Hemp's lotion and aloe will help. Lukewarm to cool water baths help if the tub is very clean. Our next story is, today I messed up by being on time to lunch. I'm a PhD student, and last week, my boss sent me an email with an invite to a lunch to meet a faculty candidate and told me he thinks it would be good if I could make it. Sweet, free lunch. So I RSVP using the link on the Outlook invite. Fast forward to today when I head to the lunch. The invite says lunch starts at 12, so I head over there and end up getting there at about 12:02. The conference/lunchroom door is ajar and there's already the candidate. I've already met her at this point earlier that day and a faculty member in the room. The door is open and my PI told me not many people would be coming, so I go in and introduce myself to the faculty member. She asks if I have any questions for the candidate. Odd, but I ask about her research, etc. This goes on for about 10 minutes when our program director walks in and asks what I'm doing here. I'm like, oh, I'm just here for the lunch, and she responds with, lunch hasn't started yet, this is the interview. Apparently, the Outlook event that I was sent was the wrong time. Lunch started at 12:15, not 12. On the original email I never saw because I was just sent the Outlook event by my PI, I had literally walked in on the interview and just started asking the candidate questions. Also, talking with the faculty member's students, she was literally just as confused as I was. I mean, this isn't OP's fault, right? They responded to literally what they were sent. There's nothing wrong with what OP did. It's embarrassing and it's really awkward, but I mean, it's not like OP should be getting fired for something like that. If anything, they'll be a lot more attentive with any kind of email they get. Highway Satara commented, I used to work in a hospital and on a research and policy project, not as a provider, and the drug companies would often buy lunch for the doctors down the hall. We were always invited to help ourselves after their lunch meetings ended, and we would. One time I was coming back from another office, saw there was food in the conference room, and went in. No one was around, but I grabbed a plate, got some lunch, and then I told my office mate about the food. She went to the conference room, where a couple of people were now sitting, and she made herself a plate. Someone asked her what she was doing because the doctor's lunch meeting hadn't even started yet. I had set her up and I had no idea. I was laughing and she was freaking out. Our next story is, today I messed up by implying that my family owned my doctor's family and sounding super racist. I know it sounds stupid, but I forget sometimes that most people are the same race as their relatives. I'm white, but my father, who adopted me, is black. My biological father died when I was 3. I have a white sibling and a black sibling. My white sister has a black son. I went to a new gynecologist today and my new doctor is black. Her last name is my mother's maiden name, which is not a common name. I'm chatty when I'm nervous, and this was only my second time seeing a gynecologist. So I told her she has the same last name as my mom, and asked my doctor where she's from. She said the name of the same relatively small city in Alabama where my white mother is from. I said, what? No way, my mom's from there. We must be related somehow. She just kind of paused for a minute and looked at me like she was trying to figure out if I was joking, and she finally said, did your mother's family own a plantation? I said, not to my knowledge, and I certainly hope not, and suddenly realized that this was the implication in me, a white person, telling a black person that we must be related through my white family. I just genuinely had not in the moment been considering that we must be related isn't an okay thing to say in that context. So while she was doing my pap smear, I was apologizing profusely, trying to explain that I don't think of race and family the way most people do because my dad is black. And she said, but it's your mom who you thought I might be related to, right? And I realized I was not going to dig myself out of this hole, and I probably really upset her, and also probably sounded like I was tokenizing my dad. She was professional and it didn't affect my treatment, but I feel like I came across as the most racist jerk ever. and now never want to go to the doctor again. You know, in some ways, I almost feel like it's a nice thing to not be like too personable with your doctor. Like having things stay perfectly, comfortably professional is like a good thing. But you definitely don't want it to be too far on the wrong side of things and feel like your doctor secretly hates you while they're also the doctor that's down there doing the pap smear business. Listen, doc, I think I got off on the wrong stirrup foot here. I don't want any ill will. Comp21 commented, join the club. I think my gastroenterologist thinks I'm a white supremacist now. I went in for a colonoscopy a few weeks ago. Anesthesiologist started telling me they were going to use Profilol, propanol, whatever, and yes, that is what Michael Jackson was on, but you'll be fine. Well, this was literal seconds before I went under, and my primary thought was, is this what turned him white? See, I forgot he died of a drug overdose, and I'll add that there are drugs that do actually turn you whiter. So as soon as I wake up, I look at the doc and scream, am I whiter yet? And he said, we'll chalk that up to the anesthesia, and immediately leaves the room. I refuse to try and explain myself. There's really no way out of this. This next story is, today I messed up by reading a label wrong and destroying my health. This last week, I've been trying to get healthier and change my habits since lately I've been putting on weight and not feeling very well, so I figured some changes were in order. I quit alcohol and weed cold turkey, and ever since then, I've been craving something relaxing in the evening after a long day. So I went to my local vegan supermarket to try and find something that might help. In the supplement section, I found this stuff called Calm, a magnesium supplement that helps you sleep and apparently is relaxing. Sounds good, right? Well, it would be if I wasn't such a freaking idiot. The first night, I mixed it up with some water and it fizzed quite a bit, but it was pretty tasty and went down easy and was actually quite relaxing. The next morning, I woke up and didn't exactly feel the greatest, but figured it was just poor sleep from quitting weed. Until I had some breakfast and things started to go downhill fast. Massive diarrhea, uncontrollable and demonic, just absolutely racked me all day. You might think this is where I started to realize my mistake, but you would be wrong. I figured it was just me being lactose intolerant and chalked it up to a bad diet. Second day rolls around, same thing, except now I'm nauseous and lethargic. Waking up feeling like I'm hungover and it's hard to think. Lifting my tools at work isn't the easiest either. But again, I just chalk it up to poor sleep from quitting weed so suddenly. Day 3, I start to mix it together and decide to read the label a little closer since I notice I'm using it up pretty quickly. The realization hits. You're supposed to start with half a teaspoon and work your way up to 2 teaspoons over time. I had immediately started with 2 tablespoons since I hastily read the label the first night. Looks like I'll be skipping this the next week or so I can flush all this magnesium out of my system. You know, in the last few years, I had a doctor who recommended that I take a magnesium supplement because it's good for neurological and muscle function. What wasn't explained to me is that if you take plenty of magnesium, it's very good at making sure that things move right through you. Different as Possible laughed and commented, "You'll be just fine. You just took a laxative dose of magnesium, as in doctors prescribe this dose for this exact purpose. Remember to hydrate and replenish electrolytes." Our next story is, today I messed up by telling my Jewish friend to make a sculpture of Auschwitz. I know it sounds bad. It is indeed bad. But let me explain. Back when I was in high school, my friend and I had a project where we each had to make a Halloween-themed animal. It was a cute little idea for a pottery class, and we were brainstorming. My friend wanted his to be a pun and asked me for ideas. Think Zombeef, Frankenswine, Pupkin. I thought long and hard about it, and I came up with one that nobody had thought of. It was brilliant, truly a wordplay masterpiece. An Ost-witch. An ostrich that's a witch. Perfect, right? Now, say Ost-witch out loud. The room is quiet save for a small buzz of chatter when I have my epiphany, and in this epiphany, I turn to my friend and confidently tell him that he should make an Ost-witch sculpture. I was loud and proud. Everyone else instantly heard the other thing, but me. I swear every darn person in that room heard me. I'm just sitting here thinking that they're shocked at my amazing wordplay. What makes it worse is that I'm very obviously German. My name might as well be Gretel Wiener Schnitzel, which I feel makes it worse. Imagine being in a quiet classroom when suddenly Miss Spatzelberger loudly tells the Jewish kid that he should make a sculpture of Auschwitz. It's been 5 years since that day, but it still keeps me up at night. Of course, I apologized the moment my brain was capable of piecing the issue together, but every now and then, that memory comes back. You know, a lot of times after reading a story, I like to try to poke at it, make jabs, try to make puns. You know, I think the story alone has enough merit to it. I think I'll just let that one be. Caption Flannel commented, "When I was at a friend's birthday party at some art center place, I asked his very Jewish mother how to draw a swastika so I could complete my D-Day battle scene, going through a World War II phase at the time. Even though elementary school me was drawing the Nazis getting their butts whooped, and I had limited knowledge of anti-Semitism at the time, it still haunts me nearly 20 years later." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by sending an ill-timed gift to the work group chat." Actually, back in 2020 when lockdown began, 30-year-old male at the time, my workplace shifted to remote working, so everyone was now working from home, and Microsoft Teams was the new tool we were all using to keep in contact. My manager suggested that in the mornings, everyone sends a GIF or meme to the group chat when they start work, so everyone knows we're online. The group chat consisted of about 15 people, so mornings were a little annoying as the group chat was flooded with images and messages. As a fan of The Simpsons, I would usually just send some random Simpsons GIF, like Homer emerging from the bushes, Ralph rolling down a hill, etc. So one morning, I had to start a little earlier to catch up on some work. I opened Teams, did my usual Simpsons-related search, and then picked the GIF of evil Homer dressed as the devil, shaking maracas and dancing on the grave of good Homer. I was the first to message the group that morning, or so I thought. After I sent the message, I went to the bathroom. While on the toilet, I could hear my Teams notifications go off, and even heard someone try to call twice, but I figured it could wait until I got back to my desk. So I get back to see what was going on a couple of minutes later. The group chat was still open, with my GIF of evil Homer dancing on a grave, but there was another message I hadn't seen earlier. The message had the same timestamp as mine, but appeared in the chat before my GIF. They must have sent it moments before I did, making it look like I had sent my GIF of the grave-dancing evil Homer as a response. The message was one of the team members saying that her dad had died over the weekend, and she wouldn't be working for the next 2 days to spend time with the family and plan the funeral. When I realized what it looked like, my heart sank. I rushed to delete the message and just prayed that she hadn't seen it. The other notifications was one colleague sending me the screenshot of the chat and "what?" and the others were 2 missed calls from my manager and an all-caps message telling me to delete the GIF immediately. After deleting it, I called my manager to let her know what had happened, and thankfully she assumed it was a mistake and I would never do something so insensitive. I asked if she thought I should say anything to the colleague, since I wasn't sure if she had actually seen it. My manager said that she was offline now anyway, so all I could do was wait until she's back if I was going to say anything. When she returned to work, I did explain what happened and gave an apology. I didn't give the full description of exactly what GIF I sent, just that it wasn't appropriate for the time. Luckily, she said that she hadn't seen anything, so thankfully I hadn't hurt her, but I did scare the heck out of about 5 coworkers who had seen the message and GIF before I was able to delete it. I am evil Homer. I am evil Homer. You know, my main takeaway is that I'm glad this will literally never happen to me because I am so hyper-conscious about anything I say, any kind of reply I put out there. There's no way I would send a message like that and then just walk away. Our next story is, today I messed up my relationship and learned that procrastination is the devil and that all I do is self-sabotage. Today I messed up my relationship with a boy I love. This is the first guy I've been intimate with, and I share a really deep bond with him. This was also the longest talking stage I ever had, and it was a big deal to me as I don't have a lot of experience with guys. We were in the talking stage for 5 months now, and he was genuinely one of the most inspiring people I've ever met in my life. He is the strongest and smartest person I know, and is someone I look up to, but I freaked up real bad. This is a lesson to anyone reading that communication, as hard as it can be sometimes, it's the answer to everything. When our relationship started, it honestly overwhelmed me, as I've never felt love like that in my life. But I didn't say anything. When I have doubts, I wouldn't say anything. If I was feeling uneasy, I wouldn't say anything. I bottled up my emotions, and the most evil thing that I did was that I acted like everything was fine. He had no clue that I felt this way. I was procrastinating telling him all of this. I just thought it was a phase that I was going through, as that's how I usually feel when I meet new people. It takes me a long time to build connection, but I didn't communicate that clearly with him. The guilt I had for feeling that way was eating me up inside. He kind of hinted to asking me to be committed to each other in February, but I would always tell him that I needed more time. And I think I did feel like that in those moments, but it's stupid because I was also wondering why this wasn't happening yet. But I was too nervous to give him hints. I've been giving him mixed signals throughout our time together, and I didn't realize. I felt so much shame and guilt for having these doubts, and it came to a point where I just thought about breaking it off with him. I told all of my friends that I wanted to do that, and I felt horrible. In those moments, I just thought it wasn't going to work out with him, and it made me upset. A few days later, me and him were just talking in bed, and the topic of us being committed came up, and he told me that he already mentally moved on from us being together as I was giving him hella mixed signals. I didn't mean to. I lacked self-awareness in that department. Also, I had a stupid belief that the man in a relationship had to ask a girl out. But why would he do that if he didn't know what was going through my mind? Anyways, him pulling back made me realize how much he meant to me and how much I wanted to be with him. So I called him later and told him how I felt. I regret not telling him this in person, as I didn't clock how painful it would be for him to hear the words that come out of my mouth. I told him that I had moments where I didn't feel connected to him and I would feel uneasy. I also told him that I still wanted to be with him though. I broke his heart and he was never the same after this. He said he feels like I took him for granted, which is valid. I was. I couldn't recognize how much he meant to me until he finally left, and I hate myself for it. But he also still wanted to give me a second chance, and I didn't understand why. After this talk on the phone, it was never the same between us. I could feel him pulling back more and more, and it would crush me inside. I once again was having trouble explaining how I felt. I would freeze up and just start crying. Embarrassing, I know. We saw each other one last time, and he had a different look in his eye. That's how I knew it was really over. I went home and received a text last night where he wrote that he was falling out of love with me and that he can't trust me after our talk on the phone. To be honest, this crushed me, but I deserve it. My behavior is unacceptable. I don't know why he stayed with me for so long, and I regret not trying harder to communicate with him. I think he cut contact with me, as he hasn't sent me a text since then. I haven't texted him since last night. I think he just needs some space and time away from me. Through this time period, I started going to therapy and found out that I am indeed mentally ill. A very hard pill to swallow for me. I have a depression disorder, anxiety disorder, and AVPD. Now that I'm more informed of my conditions, I realize they hold a lot of control over me. I let my thoughts control me into sabotaging my relationship. I feel like a monster. So, just an FYI, learn how to love yourself before getting into a relationship. Hard expectation, as relationships are kind of just thrown into your life, but self-love and self-care is important otherwise. Stop procrastinating on telling people how you feel, even though it's scary. I still have a lot of work to do on myself, and I think this relationship made me recognize that. I need to learn how to take my own advice. Easier said than done, I guess. I think, to put it bluntly, in a relationship, communication is everything, right? If you can't communicate with the one person that's supposed to hold you down like no other person, it just kind of feels like a car crash waiting to happen. Birdie Girl 75 commented, "Look into attachment theory, especially the avoidant types, and see if anything there resonates with you. It's a fantastic starting off point for some incredible self-healing and personal stability." While this relationship didn't work out, it's been a valuable experience and you've learned a lot about yourself. Our next story is, "Today I messed up, entire class decided to write letters to a prisoner." This happened a long time ago when I was 16. Our school participated in the International Baccalaureate program that allowed us to take some intense classes and finish high school with a lot of college credits. Even if you didn't complete the entire program, the courses were great college prep. I decided my junior year of high school that I would take IB French 1, which was completely immersive. Our teacher required us to answer everything in French. Want to go to the restroom? Ask in French. Have a question about the homework? Ask in French. She assigned the entire first chapter of the first day of class due the next day. Every exercise from beginning to end. It was 20 pages. The class originally had 20 people signed up. However, the assignment left the class with only 5 of us. With students willing to put in the work, our teacher worked hard to give us an all-around education in French. We read French novels, watched French TV, discussed French history and politics. Keep in mind, this is the late 90s, so the internet was not readily available. I also lived in Central Appalachia, so just having this program was an amazing opportunity, but our resources were limited. She went above and beyond to give us work that was both hard and interesting. I remember reading Asterisk and Obelix comic books in French, and I once had a scavenger hunt around my school in total French directions. Needless to say, my teacher was always trying a variety of ways to keep up working on our French skills. One day, she has us reading a French magazine for translation. I believe it was Le Monde, and in the middle of the class, she tells us that she has a great idea. While we were working, she was looking into the classified section of the paper, just curious to see what sold, who's interested in what topic, etc. There, among all the want ads, was an advertisement about a Frenchman in a maximum security prison in Colorado, looking for someone to write in French. His name was Maxim, and it gave us an address to write to. Wouldn't that be a great way to sharpen our French skills and writing skills? Here is where the 5 of us screwed up first. We all immediately got out our papers and began writing to this Maxim, no questions asked. Now, it wasn't complete stupidity on our part. We didn't give our full names or addresses, but mailed it from our school, which, admittedly, isn't much of a cover for any of us since we are a very rural area and it would be easy to find us. But we write our letters, which I know dates my age. If you ever wrote letters to a complete stranger, the first letter is usually introducing yourself to the receiver, telling about yourself, your life, your family, which of course we did. Do you know what we didn't do? We didn't think that a guy in prison with the ability to place an ad in Le Monde could be that serious of a criminal. And at first, he wasn't. The first letter, he wrote back that our teacher was an angel and our letters were a bright spot in an otherwise dark existence. He wrote about how lonely it had been without an opportunity to interact with his native language. He eagerly looked forward to our correspondence. So our little pen pal situation continued until Maxim decided that we needed to hear his tragic tale of woe. Keep in mind, we were high school students, so our translation skills were not professional, but what I remember from the letter, it went like this. Maxim was just a simple man. He arrived to America to gain the American dream. He began by running a business and exporting leather goods, but found that he needed connections to get his inventory into the country. Enter a partner who assured him that he can get his cargo into America without too much delay with customs. Of course, he had no idea that this partner was running drugs. How could he? It wasn't until this partner got raided that he discovered all the money he had been getting from the partner just happened to be laundered in his export business. At least, that's what the FBI explained when he was arrested. So now, our French class was in a dilemma. We had been writing this guy and honestly we hadn't given any thought as to why he was in Colorado. Still, we certainly hadn't thought we would stumble onto a mob money launderer who thought we were angels and told us he would eventually get out in a few years. None of us really wanted to continue this. Luckily, school was finishing, and we all agreed that it would be best if we all conveniently forgot about all of this. We also never told anyone, not out of some solidarity, but it didn't cross our minds that this was something our parents needed to know. Besides, our teacher knew. Who else needed to? Our senior year starts, and our IB French teacher comes in and asks which one of us told Maxim about her birthday. Blank stares all around. We didn't know her birthday. She tells us she got a birthday card from Maxim at her home address. We also didn't know that either, because while our tiny Appalachian town doesn't have extensive internet, apparently his prison did. Or at least, that was the only logical conclusion we could come up with. So, complete no contact with Maxim, and the rest of the year, we all dreaded the idea that he had the ability to find where we lived. I now teach at the same school with the French teacher, and we both marvel at the fact that she gave us the assignment of writing an unknown prisoner with no concern to our safety, and that we, as students, willingly participated with these letters without telling anyone. So I learned, just because the teacher says to do, you might want to think about the unintended consequences of that assignment. So, needless to say, I think the intention was good. I don't think it's necessarily like an awful thing to have like a pen pal program, but there does need to be like some level of vetting to make sure that you're not connecting these kids to somebody that you really should not be exposing them to. Although I guess pre-internet, that's probably easier said than done. I just kind of love though that it's this exclusive group of 5 and the teacher who are paranoid about what they just stumbled into. Like the ramifications of getting on the good side of Maxim the mob boss locked up in the maximum security Colorado prison. That said, our next story is, today I messed up by falling for a fake job scam. I actually fell for a fake job gig. I graduated a year early in college just to be forced to work an unrelated job for over a year. I was so fed up and felt like I wasted the year I earned. I started applying everywhere in my field again and finally got a call back as a work-from-home customer service agent. I was trying to do IT, so this was a step in that direction. After interviewing, they took all of my information and said that I would be training during a 2-month probationary period and be paid in the end. They actually assigned me daily work over the course of a month and I was supposed to be paid after my 6 weeks were up. But weird things started happening. First, I got a call from a random lady in Texas claiming I friended her on Zelle. Then I got an email a couple of weeks later saying my banking information was successfully transferred to a new financial institution, which I never approved or attempted. And finally, someone claiming to be with the FBI called me saying that I'm under investigation for stealing $3,000 from someone's bank account. He was not an FBI agent. At this point, I called my bank to report potential fraud. That email and FBI call both happened within 30 minutes. All in all, just in case the money was real, I sort of did the work but didn't expect much. I locked my account so nothing can be taken, but money can be added. I was wholeheartedly impressed by the scam I fell for, so I wasn't even mad. I usually play along with scams just to mess with them, but this was some next level crap. The website they used and everything was falsified to look so real with references and all. So what did I do? I added that to my resume as 2 months of experience in the field, adding all the crap that would look good for my actual career, even though it was a lie. Shortly after that, I got an actual job in IT finally. They were unable to actually call the job but could check the website for verification. I even gave myself a nice recommendation letter from my boss. So technically, I lied on my resume, but did I really? I was gonna say, how does OP approach the topic of recommendation letter and like if they want to call that workplace and verify? OP's got that answered. Just lie about it. Just make it up. Also, I love OP saying, so technically I lied on my resume. The thing that popped into my head is, to be honest, who doesn't at least fudge a little bit of it? Our next story is, today I messed up by falling asleep on my best friend. Obligatory, this was last week. My 25-year-old male, best friend, 27-year-old male, who I'll name John, have been best friends since teenagers. We met over Xbox Live and became close friends after realizing that we only lived around an hour away from each other and would hang out in person often. When I turned 23, I started renting an apartment close to my work and John moved in to help cover rent. That's been the situation since, and it was great. I can confidently say that he's my best friend. In our time living together, we've never had any of the typical roommate issues I see people complain about. But then last week, we were watching a movie and both pretty exhausted because of work. Halfway through the movie, I fell asleep and woke up holding on to him. Head on his chest, arm around his midsection. He didn't move me because I looked too comfortable, and honestly I was. So comfortable in fact, that I didn't really get off of him. I moved my arm but kept my head on his chest. I should have just sat up and I don't know why I didn't, but he didn't seem to mind and ended up putting his arm around me. After the movie, I went to bed and couldn't get to sleep. All I could think of was how good it felt to be that close to him. So that's my life now, I think? It's been a week and he hasn't said anything about it, but it's literally all I can think about. I like the way he felt and he smells really good too, which I guess I never noticed. Am I gay now, or did I just like feeling safe? Who knows? Either way, I'm being weird around him now. Can't really look at him, I don't sit next to him on the couch, and if we touched, bumping into each other or handing something to him, I feel like I go into a panic and end up finding an excuse to leave the room. I just wanted things to go back to normal, and now I'm convinced they never will. Update, a few people asked, so here we go. Apologies for how long it is. Firstly, thank you for all the comments. They were all either helpful or made me laugh, so thanks. So I didn't super know what to say to him when he got home and ended up apologizing for being weird the last week. I basically told him that I knew I was acting off and didn't want him to think anything was wrong or weird between us, but the cuddling that happened was new and gave me mixed feelings. None of them bad, it was just confusing. He let me get it all out, and at one point I mentioned, everyone was saying how normal platonic cuddling is, and I agree, and he asked who I meant by everyone. So then I told him I made a Reddit post about it, and he asked if he could read it to better understand how I've been feeling. Once he read the post, I asked him how he felt about everything, and he said that he'd been worried he'd done something wrong when I was acting distant around him. But he personally didn't feel weird about holding me. It wasn't a big deal to him to cuddle up with friends, but he knows I'm pretty awkward and a little neurotic, so he didn't want to bring it up and make me feel worse. We talked so much, I actually don't remember a lot of it, but some ways into the conversation, he asked about the "am I gay" comment, which I admit was badly worded. John is pansexual. He has been since I met him, so he's pretty open about it. It's never really been something I even considered until a week ago, but oh boy, have I done some considering in the last week. I said it felt a little like a crush, but I wasn't sure if 1, I was just needing affection, or 2, this was just a fleeting thing. He said that was fine, and nothing had to change if I didn't want it to, which was ultimately a huge relief. He also said that if I still feel like I have a crush later, we can take things one step at a time, but that he would be open to exploring that further if I was. I feel like the way I felt after he said that sort of gave me my answer to if it's a crush or not, but I agree with him that we shouldn't jump to conclusions and take it slow. After the big long talk, we watched TV, yes, cuddling, and I feel a lot less confused about it this time. I don't think there will be a need for another update, but thanks again so much for all the comments and really helpful advice. You all gave me the confidence to talk to him about this, and it ended up going way better than expected. All I'm gonna say is if there was anything actually necessarily wrong or off-putting about what OP did to their roommate friend, they wouldn't have continued to keep their arm around OP or whatnot, or continue to reciprocate the cuddling session. I mean, just the fact alone that it got to that position where OP could wake up like that kind of tells you that they're not opposed to the whole thing. Also, I just have to point out that in the comments there's 1.5 million references to the Friends episode where Joey and Ross fell asleep on the couch together cuddling, and then Joey goes on to say that it was the best nap ever and wants to do it again. Our next story is, today I messed up by asking my husband to pick up the kids. Today I messed up and just hilariously embarrassed myself and the poor older woman at the ticket counter. I went to the box office to get tickets for an event. Before I walked in, I texted my husband and asked if he could pick up the kids because I was running behind. I got to the counter and told the very nice lady, in her probably late 60s, early 70s, what I needed. We went over the seating charts and dates and had been talking for quite some time, so now we're basically friends. I had a coupon code on my phone and showed it to her. She wasn't familiar with it and needed to check with her supervisor and asked to take my phone. No problem. Gave her my phone and she went back to check. After about 5-ish minutes, she came back super uncomfortable, said she was able to process my coupon, handed me my phone and said, "Here you go, you got a text," and would no longer look me in the eyes like she previously had been during our whole interaction. Thought it was odd, but paid for my tickets and went on my way. I looked at my phone and saw that my husband had texted me back and said, "Well, I just sat down to crap, but I'll pinch her off and run and grab him." I just started laughing hysterically and passed by a hockey team coming into practice, and they all looked at me like I was unwell, which made me laugh even harder. Hopefully you can all laugh with me. If not, and this is just dumb, you can let me know that too, because it'll also make me laugh. Did anybody else think that that text OP was going to find that their husband sent to them was going to be a different kind of humanly urged related text? Like I'll go pick up the kids if that means we can have a no disqualification wrestling match later kind of thing. Our next story is, today I messed up by offering to fix breakfast while being educational. We were up very early this morning and I offered to fix breakfast. Going through possible choices from stuff in our fridge, my bestie said that anything I cook will be good, and then clarified with a wink, except liver. In my best effort to be educational as well as handy, I said, "Yes, you do like liver. Love it, in fact." That was met with disbelief. They really love pate, but Braunschweiger will do in a pinch, and when it's on sale, I'll get extra along with fresh wheat crackers. I'm nice like that sometimes. What do you think is in that refrigerator right now? That pate you love? Looking at me with fearful eyes, realization set in when they saw I was not kidding. Realization then hit me that I just messed up by ruining one of her all-time favorite foods. Tried so hard to not wheeze while being a spectator to dry heaves. Today's breakfast was canceled altogether. Is anybody else taken aback by the fact that they loved some kind of food for so long, and then finding out that that meat paste you love so much is a specific body part is enough to make them just like forgo the entire food? Just wait until you find out what most hot dogs are comprised of. Wait until you find out that for a long time doesn't do it anymore, but for a long time, some varieties of Mountain Dew used castoreum. Castoreum being derived from the anal glands of a beaver. True fact, and some things still use it. This next story is, today I messed up by trying to make a video game of our house. This happened a few years ago. I'm a person who's driven a lot by conservation and archival work, and probably nostalgia in general. One day, I was thinking about an old computer game called Myst. It was made in the 1990s, and it looked amazing for the time, because it was lots of pictures with areas you click on to interact. And then I came up with a great idea. I wanted to document how I lived in this point of time by making a video game like Myst. All I had to do was take lots of photos and then link them together using something. It technically would have been a virtual tour, not a game, but I didn't really care. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to create something like a game, but never had the skill. I even rushed out to download Unreal Engine when I found out they made it free. Could never make anything good, but photos and hyperlinks? Yeah, I can do that. I did some research and found the old games like Myst were made in something called HyperCard, but it was for old Macs. I didn't have a Mac, let alone an old one, but more research and I found that PowerPoint is pretty similar and can do those things, but I didn't have PowerPoint on my computer back then either. So I decided to use the next best thing, Google Slides. So I chose a small room at the back of the house and took some photos, uploaded them to my Google and then onto my computer, started trying to make something that worked. It was very hard. You have to make sure that your click spots link to the right places or you'll teleport. For navigation, I made an interface consisting of some arrows you could click to move around, left or right to rotate, and forward or back to go forward and back. Click a door and then hit forward to move to that room. So I was working on this and my nosy brother walks into the room. He asked what I was working on. I just said nothing special, a personal project. He walked closer to the screen and said, "No, what is that? You're trying to make our whole house viewable online?" Because Google Slides runs in a browser, he thought it was on the greater internet. And apparently one picture of a door was our whole house. He tells our parents, who gives me an earful about what I'm doing. My parents aren't clueless boomers, but I didn't bother trying to explain, just that I wasn't doing what they thought I was. Pretty sure I deleted the assets afterward and didn't go back to the idea. That is, until I got an iPhone with a 3D scanner and discovered PowerPoint could work with 3D models and even move around them doing some macro wizardry. You know, as somebody that has severe nostalgia goggles, I'm kind of sad for OP that this all got shut down for them. Especially as somebody that moved house a few times in my life, I feel like I would kind of love having that like semi-3D or at least like slideshow presentation of the house you used to live in. You know, just see like your old room or like what you used to have back then. Kind of just like that little window into your past. Our next story is, today I messed up by seeing my ex with her baby and calling it ugly. So this happened a few days ago and I'm still cringing at myself. I was out grabbing a coffee when I ran into my ex from a few years back. We had a pretty messy breakup and we hadn't talked since. She looked happy though, and she had a stroller with her. She smiled and said, "Hey, it's been forever. How have you been?" Now, I was caught off guard but trying to play it cool. I noticed the baby in the stroller and in a moment of sheer stupidity, I blurted out, "Oh wow, is this yours? Dang, that's an ugly baby." The moment it left my mouth, I knew I had royally freaked up. I didn't even mean to say it. I think I was so shocked at running into her that my brain just short-circuited, and instead of saying something neutral like, "Oh, congrats," or even just shutting the heck up, I insulted her child. Her face went from happy nostalgia to pure rage in about 0.5 seconds. She snapped, "Excuse me? What the heck is wrong with you?" And I just stood there, realizing I had no way to recover. I panicked and tried to backtrack with, "I mean, all babies look kind of weird at first. Like they grow into their features, you know?" Yeah, that didn't help. She just gave me a disgusted look, muttered something about me being the same immature jerk I always was, and stormed off. I'm pretty sure she's telling everyone she knows about how I insulted her baby. I still feel like a total idiot, and I don't think I can ever show my face at that coffee shop again. I'm just gonna be real, how ugly did that baby have to be for OP to bump into this person, and immediately their brain just scrambles and they go, "Oh wow, that's an ugly baby you got there." I feel like my brain would even in any situation be like, "Oh wow, it's a baby." And then it just kind of flatlines for a while after that. Our next story is, today I messed up, I think I blew it with my crush. So there's a woman at work that I kind of have a crush on. Today, a couple of us were going out to lunch. She didn't know about the other people yet. I stopped by her cube and asked if she wanted to go to lunch, and she said yes and looked surprised. Without thinking much, I peeked my head around the cube and was like, "Oh, Em isn't here, I'll ask her later." And then I walked away like the fool that I am. So then lunch rolls around and we all go, but she's acting weird. Not sitting as close to me as usual or making as much eye contact. Then she acted weird again by quitting time by saying goodnight, but not in the smiling way she usually does. I think she might have actually been interested, and I freaked it up. Update, I asked her to go to a soccer game this weekend and she said, "Normally I would say yes, but I already have plans for Saturday." So positive-ish, but not great? I'll try again some other time. I think OP actually double screwed up here. The first exchange, obviously there was different intentions going into that. OP looping back around later and asking them to go to the soccer game without any further context is where they messed up. OP in that moment should have been vulnerable and explained that the first situation they were trying to do a group thing, but that they do actually have a crush on them, they don't want to feel like they scorned them, and that they would love to see how things would go if they want to join them to go on whatever X date. OP just popping back up and being like, "Hey, you want to go to a soccer game with me now?" I don't think it really cuts through enough. Our next story is, today I messed up by leaving edibles out for the in-laws, and now they think they're in the Matrix. Today I messed up by leaving edibles out for the in-laws, and now they think they're in the Matrix. So this happened last night, and my marriage may never recover. My wife's parents are visiting, and these people are aggressively wholesome. They think weed is a gateway to Satan's basement. I, on the other hand, enjoy a strong high. My boy made these things. They're strong. I thought I'd put them away in my office. But nope, I left them on the kitchen counter in a jar looking like granola bars. My in-laws decided to help clean up while I was out picking up food. We get back and her dad is devouring a bar, while her mom is munching on another, saying, these are earthy." I went into full panic mode. My wife has no clue, so she casually mentions, "Oh, those must be the ones I made." Her dad's like, "Wow, you made these? They're amazing," and finishes it at this point. I'm just running calculations in my head. These edibles take about 45 minutes to hit, and they've just consumed enough THC to knock out a moose. Fast forward 30 minutes, her dad is in the backyard staring at a tree like it's whispering secrets. Her mom's crying because she forgets how spoons work. My wife is losing it trying to figure out what happened, and I'm just thinking of my escape plan. Then her dad looks at me and says, "I think I'm in a video game." Her mom starts laughing uncontrollably for no reason and then cries again. My wife starts yelling, which only freaks them out more. Her dad whispers, "You need to unplug me, son," while her mom points at the TV screaming, "Why is everyone frozen?" We spent the rest of the night watching them have a meltdown of every emotion possible. Her dad had an existential crisis about whether he was real, and her mom eventually fell asleep hugging a loaf of bread. The in-laws are still alive somehow, but my wife hasn't spoken to me in 14 hours. Pray for me. Update: the in-laws are fine, but my father-in-law says he understands the universe now. My mother-in-law keeps staring at the microwave like it's about to tell her a secret. Wife told me to sleep on the couch, until further notice. Pray for me. Now, I'm not out here writing the Declaration of Independence, I'm simply sharing a chaotic story. I hit Reddit quick, wrote it in a rush. If you struggled to read it, congratulations. You now know what it felt like to live it. Consider it an immersive experience. Good day. OP, a well-structured author? Maybe not. A bringer of great wisdom? It depends on which in-law you talk to. A possessor of potentially evil inanimate electronics? Also depends which in-law you talk to, apparently. They do have a very cuddleable loaf of bread though. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy story of how a Redditor messed up, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.